Dr. Vasquez had been a practicing medical doctor for years. She was seasoned, she was knowledgeable, and because she worked in the emergency department, she had seen, just about everything, The fragility of human life, the total loss of death, and everything in between. Like, she had seen everything. Nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared her for the alleged murderer who would walk through those hospital doors that very night. It was a relatively quiet night in the emergency room, which you would never dare say that out loud. Did you know? It's actually a tradition in almost every single hospital, at least in the US. It's a superstition amongst healthcare workers that if someone says out loud, "Oh, what a slow night," or they comment anything about it being a slow night or not that busy, the rest of the shift is doomed to be crazy busy. So no one uttered a word, but it was kind of a slow night. All their efforts would be in vain because within an hour, the hospital's emergency department would descend into a crime scene, resulting in one of the most high-profile first-degree murder cases involving the death of a child that we've seen in a very long time. And this is a very recent case. The crime took place January of 2023. An arrest was made May of 2023, so just a month and a half ago, really.
Wow.
Now, Dr. Vasquez would have two patients that night. One would be the alleged murderer, and the other would be the victim. The full show notes are going to be available at rottenmangopodcast.com. But today's case involves a lot of heavy and controversial content regarding pregnancy, abortion, adoption, women's health, and topics that are especially turbulent with the current politics of the US. So with that being said, reporting on this case is in no way a political statement or representative of personal opinions. I think a lot of the discussions about this case revolve around the politics of it all. And I do think that those are important discussions to have. The purpose of today's episode is to sift through all of the speculations and present what we know so far in a way that does Baby Doe justice. Hopefully, we're able to accomplish that, but just keep in mind that this case is currently ongoing with a trial scheduled for October of this year. Just a reminder that legally, no one has been convicted of absolutely anything as of right now. So with that being said, there is CCTV footage inside of a hospital's hallway that shows a 19-year-old woman half skipping, half running out of her treatment room and beelining it for the restroom. She's holding her butt with her left hand, and the staff members who saw her run through the hallway, they kind of wrote it off as like a potty dance. It's similar to when kids have been holding a poo for a really long time. They sort of like jump around and they try to distract themselves. Plus, it's the emergency department during the night shift, so the staff are not going to be grossed out or scared of a little bit of poo or someone who has to go really bad. They had seen so much worse. So Lori, who's a certified nursing assistant, she recalled seeing this 19-year-old girl named Alexi urgent run through the hallway and thought, well, you know what? If you gotta go, you gotta go. A minute or two later, 19-year-old Alexi's mother, Rosa, knocks on the bathroom door to check up on her daughter. She's like, "Hey, Alexi, are you okay in there?" Now, these are one of the single toilet bathrooms, so it's not a public restroom with a swinging door and a bunch of stalls inside. It's one person, one toilet, one sink. The mom returns to their treatment room after Alexi insists, like, "Hey, Mom, I'm just constipated. Give me some time." Nurse Chris, he's the next person to check on Alexi in the bathroom. He knocks on the door. "Alexi, it's Nurse Chris. Are you doing okay?" She responded with the same thing that she told her mom, so Chris gave her some privacy because, you don't really think anything's alarming when someone's constipated. Then, another nurse checks on Alexi. Alexi refused help once more. So, through the door, the nurse told Alexi to pull the red emergency cord if she needed absolutely anything, and it would send a page to the nurse's station.
How long has it been?
Like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, okay, so let's give Alexi some space. Now, at this point, none of them had any reason to believe that she wasn't just really constipated, or did they? So as the time passes, as the minutes tick by, Nurse Chris paces and he's waiting for his patient to come out, and his mind starts wandering to the events leading up to this abnormally long bathroom break. Like, you feel like you're in the bathroom for a really long time, when you're constipated, but it's never like 20 minutes long. So let's bring it back to the beginning of Alexi's emergency room visit. She was not there for constipation, I'll tell you that. Alexi came into the ER with lower back pain. She said early in the evening that night, she felt this intense lower back pain, and she thought, maybe I'll just sleep it off. She tries to go to sleep. The pain's getting worse. The pain's not going away. And she wakes her mom up. They drive to the emergency room. And that evening, it's quite late into the night. It's January 26, 2023. And it's actually Alexi's second time at this hospital, at the Artesia General Hospital ER, in the past 2 months.
Okay.
She was
For the
there-
same reason?
Yeah, December of 2022. So a month before she was there. Now, Nurse Chris was Alexi's first point of contact. He was responsible for triaging patients that night. Basically, he's in charge of asking the patients general questions, taking vitals, getting background, and starting a patient chart. Nurse Chris was in charge of prioritizing which patients were seen first, who's before who, the order of admission, if you will. Now, Nurse Chris noted that Alexi's only remarkable symptoms were a somewhat elevated heart rate and a report that her back pain was a 10 on a scale of 1 through 10 of pain, with 10 being the worst.
What?
So this could mean a lot of things for a nurse. Did she break her back? Did her spine get compromised? She was admitted into one of the treatment rooms in the ER for her pain, and her assigned doctor was Dr. Heather Vasquez. Now, Dr. Vasquez is like a superwoman doctor. She was the attending emergency physician at the General Hospital, but also the medical director for another clinic. So she's been practicing medicine for the past 20 years or so. If anyone in that ER knew what they were doing, it was Dr. Vasquez. But all of them knew what they were doing. You get it. And she noticed a lot of strange things about Alexi. So first of all, Dr. Vasquez attempted to do a full workup on Alexi, but a couple of things were making it very hard for her. Alexi did not let Dr. Vasquez touch her.
At all?
At all. And was almost too spatially aware of how her body moved and how close Dr. Vasquez was getting to her. Second, Alexi was unable to sit still, which could be due to a lot of things. Especially back pain. You could be fidgeting, you could be trying to get comfortable, but it seemed more of like a nervous fidget rather than a painful fidget. Oh, I'm in pain, I'm trying to get into a comfortable position.
How do you get checked up for back pain without getting touched?
So that's why Dr. Vasquez is this doesn't feel that normal. I don't know what's going on right now. Does she have a condition where she is genuinely afraid of touch? What's going on, right? Now, Dr. Vasquez's brain immediately began to signal, okay, well, regardless of that, looking at her symptoms, I think it's probably either kidney stones or pregnancy. And back pain can be so many different things, but with just the suspicious body language of Alexi, it just seemed to tip Dr. Vasquez's diagnostic radar. Something else was going on here. She just felt like she wasn't getting the full story. So Dr. Vasquez asked Alexi multiple times if there was any chance that she could be pregnant. Now, side note, we do have a few people close to us that are either studying to be in the medical field or are in the medical field. And for anyone with a uterus, medical staff are taught to assume that there is always a chance for pregnancy. It is such an important part of people with a uterus's healthcare, and it can have a huge impact on treatment, like plans on what medications can and cannot be used, if symptoms are related to pregnancy or it's something else that needs to be investigated. That's why pregnancy is its own field of medicine. It can change so much about the care process.
Okay.
So, it's not like they're trying to be insensitive. They just have to constantly ask you if you're pregnant. So there's certain medications you can't be given, certain operations you can't have. It's very important. It was important for Dr. Vasquez to know, and she explained this to Alexi and her mother, Rosa, who was also in the treatment room. So she's like, Mom, daughter, you got to tell me. And Rosa, the mom, commented, under no circumstances, absolutely not, is Alexi pregnant. I have been buying her pads every single month. She's on her period every single month. She's not pregnant. And Alexi agreed. Anytime Alexi was questioned about pregnancy or sexual activity, partners, protection, she insisted that 1, she was a virgin, and 2, there was absolutely no chance that she could be pregnant. And because healthcare workers only know what the patient tells them, Dr. Vasquez decided to start by doing some tests to narrow down some possible diagnoses. And that way, once again, if they know what's wrong, they can help treat it. So just to note, at this point in the treatment, the main concern is her back pain. The treatment is probably alleviating the pain while finding the root of the problem. This is what the medical staff think they're dealing with. So they start running some tests and they just want to rule out things, kidney stones, GI obstruction. They would need a CAT scan. And as a precaution and most likely protocol, a urine strip pregnancy test was ordered. Now, urine pregnancy tests are notoriously quick at producing results. The commercial ones that you buy at like Walgreens and you bring it home and do it, they function similarly to the clinically used ones. So it's almost always the first test result to come back when you're at the hospital. It's like the quickest. The pregnancy test for Alexi comes back positive. And not like a thin, oh wait, can you see that line? Like, Nurse Chris, can you see this line? Like, maybe I'm just imagining the line. Do you see it too result? It was an unmistakably clear result that Alexi Trevizo was indeed pregnant. But how can that be? She and her mother insisted that for however many months she has been on her period, she's Virgin Mary, she doesn't have sex, no partners, so what's going on? Maybe it's a false positive? Did you know false positives are pretty rare compared to false negatives? So Dr. Vasquez ordered an HCG blood test to be 100% sure. So the blood test is a lot more accurate and a lot more precise than a urine test. The urine test just tells you if you're pregnant or not. The blood test can tell you how far along in gestation you are.
So this is happening right then and there.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, okay, let's do another one.
Yeah, but they don't tell her that she's pregnant.
Oh, they didn't tell her?
No, they're like...
when they got the first result.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, maybe it's a false negative, so let's run the blood. Because she's insisting she's not pregnant. And she doesn't look pregnant. So, maybe she's not. The blood test can even assist in the diagnosis of abnormal pregnancies like an ectopic pregnancy or a possible miscarriage. This is also important. I'm so sorry. Okay, so just to be clear.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Is this the first visit or the second visit?
Second visit.
Oh, okay.
This is January.
This is like going on that night.
Oh, yeah, that night. So now, just to be clear, now the focus goes from back pain, I wonder what that's from, to, oh, she's pregnant. But let's just make sure, and hopefully it's not an ectopic pregnancy because that can cause abnormal back pain. Now, an ectopic pregnancy, as of right now, are unfortunately 100% non-viable. It's where the embryo, the fetus, basically, implants in the fallopian tubes instead of the uterus. Think of a fallopian tube as like thin spaghetti-like pieces. I mean, there is no way for that. If there's an embryo inside of the fallopian, there's no way for the pregnancy to come to term. And if it does continue to grow, it can cause excruciating pain, including back pain and potential for hemorrhage. It could be life-threatening to the mother. So Alexi's suspected cause for her pain and her positive pregnancy test, it suggested to all the medical staff that maybe she's having an ectopic pregnancy. And remember, up until this point, Dr. Vasquez has not been able to touch Alexi, let alone do a routine physical exam, and Alexi is wearing super baggy clothes. She appeared to be a normal teenager who just kind of like rolled out of bed and went to urgent care. She was wearing large black sweats and a big orange t-shirt, like a high school t-shirt. So when you picture a full-term pregnant woman, their belly is like unmistakable. Even in a big t-shirt, it's unmistakable. Alexi, on top of that, was very short. Like she's just a little over 5'1". So anytime a petite woman is pregnant, it's like even more obvious due to the proportions. Alexi did not look heavily pregnant at all. So Dr. Vasquez and her care team had no reason to suspect that Alexi was anywhere near full term. So yes, the urine test confirmed she was pregnant, but because she wasn't showing, they rightfully assumed it was maybe her first trimester. Now, anyway, they're about to confirm it with the HCG pregnancy test, so it's just kind of a waiting game for the results. That panel, the blood panel, would take remarkably longer than a urine strip test, so as they wait, the healthcare team, they update Alexi and Rosa for what they're waiting for. Now, this is also when they officially report the positive pregnancy result to Alexi and Rosa, her mom. So that indeed is just confirming that everyone, mom, patient, doctor, nurse, everyone knows that Alexi has tested positive for pregnancy, but we're still going to confirm it with a blood test. They had no idea how far along she was. They didn't know anything else to tell her. This is just what they have. And as of right now, Alexi still will not let Dr. Vasquez touch her. So now on Alexi's care team, we have Dr. Vasquez, who is unable to provide adequate care because Alexi refuses to let her touch her. And then we met Nurse Chris, who first triaged Alexi and heard of her initial symptoms of back pain, got her into the treatment room. And now we have Nurse HT. He goes by his initials, so I'm going to keep it that way. But HT was the charge nurse that night. And the charge nurse is the leadership role. So he's basically on charge of all the nurses on that shift. And he had been a nurse for years. In the past, he served for the Marines. He was actually provided healthcare for the military bases. And this man, just like everyone else in this hospital, very, very qualified. Nurse HT wasn't necessarily put on Alexi's case, but Nurse Chris came to him with a bunch of concerns. Chris was kind of worried. He said it just didn't feel right about the positive pregnancy test. And the fact that mother and daughter were so adamant that it was impossible that she was pregnant, they just kept saying she was a virgin. But the pregnancy test came back positive, so I don't know. Nurse Chris told Nurse HT, she's saying like there's absolutely no way she's a virgin, and she reported that she had her period every single month like clockwork. Chris told HT about how upset Alexi's mom Rosa was and how she was processing the news that the urine test came back positive. And it was just so odd that both mom and daughter seemed to be in complete and utter denial. And the mom wasn't even helping the situation. Nurse Chris felt like it was getting to a weird point. Rosa kept asking Alexi things like, why didn't you tell me? You were supposed to come to me first.
Wait. So when they told them that she's pregnant, what did they say?
They're like, no, there's no way. And then the mom turns to the daughter and is like, why didn't you tell me? You're supposed to come to me first.
Oh, so the mom
is upset.
Recognized that she is pregnant now.
Yeah. And so it's like just getting very bizarre. And Nurse Chris is just ranting to Nurse HT. So charge Nurse HT, he'd seen a lot of things in his career. And Rosa and Alexi's actions up until this point to him were pretty par for the course. It was an emotional situation and totally common for the topic of sexual activity to cause friction between the parent and child. But he tells Chris, if it escalates, there are options, because the patient's chart states that Alexi is 19. She is an adult. We don't need a guardian in the room. So if the mom is making it hard for her to receive health care or making it difficult for this patient to be honest and upfront legally, we have every right to escort the mom outside to the waiting room because she is a legal adult and she doesn't need a guardian present. She's 19. Now, this part is going to be very, very pertinent to the story that Alexi is a 19-year-old high school student living with her mom. It just complicates a lot of things. So even though she's legally an adult, maybe they have a relationship where it still feels like she's a minor and she's treated as such. Back to the situation at hand. Nurses HT and Chris both agree that they're going to wait and see if the back and forth between the mom and daughter continue. And if that's the case, they're going to lead Rosa out to the waiting room. But till then, they're still waiting for the blood panel results. Dr. Vasquez had other patients waiting on her. And just sitting around with Alexi wasn't helping anyone. So Dr. Vasquez could only wait and help ease some of Alexi's symptoms of back pain. She prescribed morphine, Zofran, and sodium chloride. Now, morphine is a narcotic used to treat pain. Zofran is used to alleviate nausea. And sodium chloride is basically to replenish your electrolytes. It's not even a prescription medication. It's like an over-the-counter thing. So we're going to come back to these meds later, but this is going to help Alexi while they wait for the results. Now, the doctors and nurses, they would lose the race against time. The results would not come quick enough. And what many believe to be murder would take place that very night in that very hospital. While they're waiting, Alexi runs to the hallway bathroom. It looks like she's trying to rush to poop. Nothing alarming. I mean, like I said, the nurses had seen worse. But after what feels like quite a bit of time, the nurse, Chris, he starts getting a bit concerned. And on top of that, he was hearing some abnormal activity in the bathroom. It was like flush, pause, paper towel dispenser, flush, pause, paper towel dispenser. Wait, she's pregnant. Could she be having a miscarriage? Chris calls for Lori, who rushes over, and she hears the same thing. A few more flushes went by, and Lori tells Chris, what if she's having a miscarriage in there and she's flushing everything down the toilet?
Oh my goodness.
They attempt to call out to Alexi again, asking her to come out so that they can make sure that she's okay. But instead they hear, flush, pause, paper towel dispenser. No response. So the risks were escalating now as of Alexi's care team. They're starting to get incredibly worried that she's either miscarrying or hurting herself in an attempt to miscarry, because to the staff, she just found out that she's pregnant. She's 19. She's a high school student. It's not completely unreasonable. Also, anytime a patient is locked in a bathroom over the normal allotted time and they're not responding, it's a cause for concern in a hospital. She was in the bathroom for about 20 minutes. She entered around 1:38 a.m. and came out around 2 a.m. Alexi's care team attempted to check up on her multiple times and she was not responding. Dr. Vasquez ended up telling the staff, and I quote, "You need to get her out of there right now." So Chris calls to Lori to retrieve the master key from the nurse's station around the corner. And as Lori is hustling to grab the keys and run over, Chris is knocking on the door and giving Alexi one final warning. "Alexi, please open the door or else we will have to open it ourselves and make sure that you are safe, okay?" The flushing stops. Lori is jingling the keys in front of the bathroom door and is about to put the master key in. And at the very last second, Alexi unlocks the bathroom door and she's just standing in front of them, almost looking dazed. And as a reflex, Lori turns around, kind of giving Alexi some privacy. It just felt very weird, and prioritizing putting the master key away since Dr. Vasquez and Nurse Chris were already there. So as Lori returns the keys down the hall, and once Alexi is out of the threshold of the door frame, Chris gets a clear view into the bathroom that she was just in.
Mm-hmm.
All he saw was red. The sight caught him off guard, and he asked Alexi, "What happened?"
Like blood everywhere?
Oh yeah, like walls on the tiles everywhere. Not just the toilet, like walls everywhere, sink. Alexi just responded that she was on her period. Both Chris and Dr. Vasquez saw the amount of blood. They were both under the impression that this is not just blood from a heavy flow. The volume and the kind of like the consistency and the circumstances of everything, they all pointed to an early term miscarriage. And remember, there is still no indication that Alexi was full term. She's petite, she's 19, a cheerleader. Her belly had little indication of anything else floating around inside except perhaps some natural bloating. She wore baggy clothes. She refused to let the doctors or nurses touch her during her triage and exam. So why do I keep reiterating that? Because as of right now, they are still, after seeing all this blood, everyone is treating this as a 19-year-old that is too scared, too emotional to come to terms with the fact that she was pregnant and just suffered a miscarriage. They have no idea that they're dealing with an alleged murderer, and that also means hospital staff were not looking for a victim or a baby. Dr. Vasquez immediately ushers Alexi back into her treatment room, and she knew that she had to perform a vaginal exam as soon as possible to assess what happened in there. Another staff member in the room was also assisting Dr. Vasquez. And so with Dr. V taking care of Alexi, the nurse Chris and Lori, they take on the task of cleaning up what they believe to be a miscarriage.
No.
So Lori contacts Leela, who is part of the housekeeping team of the hospital, and she notifies her that there is a cleanup needed in the hallway bathroom. There has been a miscarriage. Lori goes in before Leela arrives and notes like the viscosity and the thickness of the blood was consistent with miscarriage in some aspects. It definitely wasn't a period. There was so much blood. I mean, smears on the wall, as well as almost like a bizarre splatter pattern. So she said it's almost like if you had a balloon filled with blood and you kind of popped it.
So I went and I got the key, and just as we were getting ready to open the door, she opened it, and all I saw was like blood everywhere, like on the walls, on the toilet. It just looked like a horror film.
Now, was it covering the floor, or was it like splotches?
You could tell she was wiping it up with paper towels because it was like smeared.
Okay.
Yeah.
The blood was bright red. The smell was penetrating. And another nurse, I'm going to keep her name anonymous, but she stopped by to see what was going on and why the bathroom was painted in blood. She was so appalled by the state of the bathroom that something deep down inside of her told her to take pictures. She would take pictures, and allegedly she would take them to the police. Now, if those pictures still exist, we don't know because the police have been very, very hush-hush about it. These would be the only permanent pieces of evidence regarding the blood of the crime scene. The other reports are just eyewitness testimonies by hospital staff. Housekeeper Leela arrives. The staff can be seen pointing, glancing, and maneuvering around bloody footprints left in the hallway because there was that much blood that when Alexi walked back to her treatment room, she's like leaving bloody footprints. And housekeeper Leela, she begins to clean. Now, Leela starts with cleaning up the hallway so people don't slip on the blood, and it's a biohazard. There's so much blood, like so much. And after that, Leela gets to work on the bathroom. Now, at this point, it's about 2:10 in the morning, January 27th, 2023. She said that there was so much blood, she had to go in and clean everything multiple times. And she had to make sure she got everything well because, again, blood is a biohazard. 15 minutes pass of Leela mopping and cleaning up the smears of blood in the bathroom, and she's getting ready to take out the bathroom trash. So the bathroom trash, it didn't look like it was filled. Like it just had a little bit of waste and a little bit of smears of blood, and she's just going to get it out and put in a new liner. Even if there's like one napkin with blood in there, she's supposed to take it out. That's like the regulations. And you know that feeling when you try to pick up something, and you kind of already have a gauge of how much it's going to weigh. Mm-hmm. And when it contradicts your beliefs or your thought, your body's kind of like, oh, whoa. Mm-hmm. It's like when you expect a suitcase to be super heavy, but turns out there's nothing in there. So it's light and your arm kind of does like a weird thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, typically the bathroom trash is just filled with paper towels after people wash their hands.
Yes.
But Leela's arm suddenly went heavy. There was a lot more weight in there than she expected. But the feeling is disorienting. You're just like, oh, weird. But it's a feeling that goes away. And Leela had a lot going on in her mind. So she set the trash bag outside the door of the restroom. And as she's finishing cleaning, she's thinking, oh, shoot, we keep the roll of trash bags in the bathroom, like new trash bags. Maybe someone threw that into the trash bag and that's why it's so heavy. And not saying she was going to take it out and use it. I don't know if there's hospital regulations against that, but she just wanted to double take and see if that was the case, to see if her suspicions were correct. Mm-hmm. The next moments for the Artesia General Hospital staff were a blur. Leela yelled for HT and Lori, who were both at the nurse's station at the corner. Lori responded first, and Leela's horrified face was just enough to signal that everything was wrong. Like everything was very, very seriously wrong. Lori leans down and she starts sifting through the trash. HT follows and leans down to look as well. And immediately HT runs and pulls Dr. Vasquez straight out of Alexi's room to update her. And he's basically like, you have to come now. So Dr. Vasquez comes down the hall and presumably he's kind of giving her updates as they're walking because she has her hands in her hair. She's visibly very distressed.
Who?
The doctor.
Okay.
And one peek into the trash bin and Dr. Vasquez's arm shoots out, pointing to the trauma room next to them across the hall. Put him in trauma 2.
For who? The baby?
So they bring the entire trash bag into the trauma room and the lights are turned on and the care team members are hustling in and out. The situation unfolding seemed to slow time all the way to like a stop. You know, one of the nurses, HT, was a Marine. He had been practicing for years. Lori had been working for 16 years. Dr. Vasquez was the medical director at another hospital. She had been a physician for 20 years. Nurse Chris had been in the emergency department for 5 years. Combined, Alexi's healthcare team had over a lifetime of experience in medicine. Yet there was nothing that could prepare the team for what allegedly Alexi Treviso's actions led to that night. Inside the trash bin were a bunch of used paper towels as well as trash bags, new trash bags. It's almost as if you were to take a new trash bag out of the roll, open it up and kind of crinkle it up to make like a trash ball, but it's just a new trash bag and stuff it in. Those were all taken out. And at the very bottom was another clear trash liner and the tiny body of a baby boy inside. There was an open end of the trash bag. And you know when you don't finish your loaf of bread, you kind of twist it. And then maybe you don't tie it because you don't like untying it. So you kind of tuck it underneath your bread loaf and you're like, well, I hope it just keeps it closed.
No.
That's how the baby boy was found. Nurse HT cradled the baby boy out of the trash bag and ripped the bag open to get to the baby as quick as possible to see if there was any indication of life or any chance at resuscitation. Lori noticed the clear bag was suctioned against the baby boy's face like a vacuum seal. over his eyes, nose, and mouth, and his tiny head, and he had a full head of hair. If you've ever seen a horror movie where someone is smothered by having a plastic bag around their head and it just suctions to them like saran wrap, it was kind of like that. The baby boy's body was cold to the touch, and yeah, his skin was blue and fleshy purple, and there were smears of blood and mucus all over him. And from his tiny body, there was the umbilical cord, still completely attached to what would have been his belly button. The umbilical cord is what connects the mother and the baby, and it has to be cut during birth. It's not like a string. It's pretty thick. It's pretty tough. I'm sure it's a very interesting consistency. It's not easy to cut through. They're kind of elastic. The end of his umbilical cord had this frayed edge, and it was horrific. The edge wasn't clean. Obviously, there were no scissors in the bathroom. Instead, the edge was frayed. Pieces of the umbilical cord fiber had been ripped apart, as if someone had held the umbilical cord in both hands, twisted and ripped it apart. The end was so frayed and so horrifically frayed. The only thing that Lori, the CNA, could compare it to was when you were to grab a piece of string cheese and just yank it, rip it apart, and it's like the little fibers of the cheese are sticking out. In her official police interview, she says that's the first thing that she thought of. And she said, and I quote, "This chick really tore this apart. It looked like an animal tore it apart." She continued, "You know how you eat string cheese and you kind of twist it? That's how the umbilical cord looked." No resuscitation efforts could be made by the care team due to the quality of Baby Doe's body. Baby Doe's body was too cold, too unmoving, too asphyxiated, too blue, too purple, too black for any resuscitation efforts. At this point, everyone immediately understood the situation, and the ER had become a crime scene, and Baby Doe's body would be taken in for autopsy. There was no chance for resuscitation. It was more important for them to keep his little body at rest and preserve any and all evidence. Now, Dr. Vasquez declared time of death for the baby boy in the early hours of the morning. Baby Doe died on January 27th, 2023 at 2:28 p.m., the very same day he was born. He spent his estimated 15 to 20 minutes here on Earth, allegedly suffocating to death, allegedly at the hands of his mother, in a hospital bathroom, with doctors, nurses, right outside one door. Later, his autopsy reports will suggest that he died alone at the bottom of a trash can. Not once did Alexi mention the baby boy to any of the medical staff that were ready to help or assist. She never mentioned the baby boy before or after the bathroom incident, not when she denied ever having sex, not when Chris asked if she was pregnant. Not once did she let the medical staff in on her secret that she had given birth to a full-term baby just minutes before, and oh, the baby's in the bathroom. Rather, Alexi kept her mouth shut, and she continued to receive her own care by Dr. Vasquez for her back. Here's the thing, just existing these days is so expensive. The cost of living is at an all-time high. Interest rates are still rising. And I think the very last thing we should do is feel guilt or shame at having debt. Life is rough, and you deserve to show yourself some of that grace. And one of the best ways to show yourself some compassion is to find a better solution to paying off your debt. PDS Debt has customized 0% interest options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or even medical bills. PDS Debt is giving our qualified listeners a free debt savings analysis just for completing the 30-second online debt assessment at pdsdebt.com/mango. You can get a full breakdown on how to save on interest each month and the quickest way to take care of your debt. PDS Debt will actually roll all of your payments into this one low 0% interest monthly payment, and everyone with over $10,000 or more in debt qualifies. There is no minimum credit score required, bad and fair credit are accepted, and you can save thousands on interest and fees, and you can pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. And trust me, in situations like this, you're gonna feel like a weight is lifting off your shoulders. Just even when you get started, even when you start taking action, it's such a good feeling. PDS Debt is offering free debt analysis to our listeners just for completing the quick and easy debt assessment at www.pdsdebt.com/mango. That's PDSDEBT.com/mango. Take back your financial freedom today by visiting pdsdebt.com/mango. But before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about what happened after Alexei came out of the restroom and what was happening in her room while the discovery of baby Doe was being made, and what happened when the police arrived and when they officially tell Rosa and Alexei the news about the discovery, because Alexei says some pretty damning things. When Dr. Vasquez escorts Alexei back to the bathroom, back to the treatment room from the bathroom, so this is like right after birth, Nurse Elizabeth was now on Alexei's healthcare team as well. She had no prior contact with Alexei before she went into the bathroom. She just got assigned this case. Now, Nurse Elizabeth explains that when Dr. Vasquez and Alexei came back, Alexei was actively bleeding. So again, no one has found the baby. They just gently break the news to Alexei and Rosa. It seems that you've suffered a miscarriage. And because Alexei is actively bleeding, Dr. Vasquez asked if she could perform a vaginal exam to further evaluate the condition. Now, the nurse Elizabeth, she's busying herself with cleaning Alexei up and prepping her for the exam. And Rosa, the mom, she's stepping in and having a back and forth about the news. She's like, why didn't you tell me? Scolding her daughter, freaking out about, why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? And as Dr. Vasquez proceeds with the exam, Rosa is just visibly upset. And this is wild, but still, Alexei continued to deny that she ever had sex. She still insisted after this, quote, miscarriage that she was a virgin. So all the while this is happening, Dr. Vasquez and Nurse Elizabeth noticed that Alexei was continuing to bleed extensively, to the point where blood was now flowing down her inner legs, as well as there was a small puddle next to the exam table that she was on.
Wow.
So Dr. Vasquez's first observation when starting the vaginal exam was that Alexei's cervix was wide open and blood was flowing out. So this is what you mean when you give birth. They look at how dilated you are. Pretty dilated. Dr. Vasquez and Nurse Elizabeth, they worked to suction the blood the best that they could until there was a knock on the door. And charge nurse HT is like, Dr. Vasquez, you gotta come outside. Now, Nurse Elizabeth stayed in Alexei's room. She had no idea that there was a baby boy outside in the hallway. She gets Alexei into a hospital gown and is trying to clean up the blood as best as she can. And then she left to take care of her other patients. She would periodically check on Alexei to make sure she was okay, but her condition was not life-threatening, or at least everyone thought so at this point. A little bit later, when Elizabeth, the nurse, was grabbing some blankets, Dr. Vasquez and Alexei's other nurses, they pull her aside and notify her about the discovery of baby Doe. And she was instructed not to say a word until the police came. And her whole job was to continue providing care as needed, pretending like nothing happened. Nobody wanted to let Alexei know that they knew what she had done in that bathroom. At least not till the police came. So after Nurse HT found the baby boy and Dr. Vasquez called the time of death, HT basically shut down the hospital. They went into lockdown. No one's going to touch or go near the body of baby Doe or that bathroom. They were going to wait until the police came. Dr. Vasquez and the team, they made this game plan. Okay, call the police, wait for them to get here. No one tells them. Okay, this is like information lockdown, strict protocol. They would continue providing care for Alexei regardless of the criminal investigation they believed was about to be launched. So the police get there and Nurse HT fills them on all the events. And this was recorded on the police body cam cameras, and it's part of the original video that went viral. When Nurse HT is speaking with the cops, we hear very haunting dialogue. He says she went to the bathroom. She was in there for quite a while. We kept knocking on the door. Finally, we got her to open the door and there was blood everywhere. She'd put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another trash bag over on top of it. So when they looked in there, it looked like there was no trash in there, but underneath it was just a clean bag. The officer responds, wow, okay. The baby's dead. We have him in trauma 2, but she killed the kid.
We have him what?
We have him inside trauma 2,
Oh.
but she killed the kid. How old was the baby? I don't know. He's full term. She wouldn't tell us she's pregnant. She's been lying the whole time. Now, Dr. Vasquez walks up to the officers and asks if they can accompany her while she notifies Alexi and Rosa of the discovery of the baby. She wanted to make sure that all the legal bases were covered and that there were witnesses, including the body cam footage. Now, this part of the case went absolutely viral due to the body cam footage, and I can see why. It's confusing, it's weird, it's wild. There's even more questions. But the reactions of both mother, so both mom and daughter, Rosa and Alexi, they're strange. It's atypical. So inside the treatment room, we have Alexi on the hospital bed, and her mom, Rosa, is standing up. And in walks Dr. Vasquez, Nurse HT, and one of the police. Dr. Vasquez breaks the news. I'm sorry, we've discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Rosa, Alexi's mother, gasps, oh my gosh. Alexi tries to explain. She says, I'm sorry, he came out of me and I didn't know what to do. Now, this part has been dissected over and over again. What would you imagine Rosa's reaction to be, Alexi's mom's reaction to this? Many netizens did not like the way that she responded. She said, Alexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
That sounds like Kate lied about they didn't do their homework.
Yeah. So Rosa stands up, paces for a short moment, and she's pressing her hands on her forehead and sternly asks Alexi, what did you do to it? The doctor immediately says, okay, stop right there, stop. Number one priority, guys, number one priority is that she just had a baby and I don't know if she still has the placenta inside of her and she's bleeding significantly. So Alexi tries to explain to Dr. Vasquez, I'm scared, it wasn't crying or anything. So two things. Netizens did not like how Rosa scolded her daughter for something like this. The reaction was strange. It almost felt like she already knew or kind of had her suspicions that something like this was going to happen. It's also on par with what you said, a mother scolding someone for not doing their homework.
Yeah.
Now, secondly, Alexi will often refer to her child, as it. Now, her doctor, Dr. Vasquez, still needs to prioritize her physical well-being. She recommends transferring her to a different hospital called Lovelace, where they specialize in obstetrics. And because Alexi just gave birth in secret, they have no idea if the placenta was delivered. If there is placenta tissue left in the uterus, the condition can be life-threatening for the mom. Now, in addition, Alexi is also heavily bleeding. So they're very concerned about, anything that's going to happen to her. Dr. Vasquez says, I'm very sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby, it looked like you tried to hide it. We do need to have the police involved. Alexi takes this in, looks at her mom and says, nothing, it wasn't crying, it came out and nothing. Dr. Vasquez responds for Rosa, but the baby is going to be taken in for autopsy and there will be an investigation and everything. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We need to do this correctly and I want to be transparent with you and what our steps are going to be. Now, Dr. Vasquez proceeds to arrange the transfer. She leaves the room, leaving Alexi, Rosa, charge nurse HT, and the officer remaining. Now, nurse HT is about to leave, but before he does, he asks them, do you guys have any questions for me? And Rosa says, how big was the baby? Full term.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
How big is the baby?
It's full term.
What? 9 months? Nothing was crying. Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail? Nothing was crying.
Rosa's eyes widen and her hands go up to her face in shock. And this conversation continues to really freak out netizens. Rosa gasps, looks at her daughter and says, what? 9 months? Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls, what they do to their babies, and they go to jail? Side note, that comment has been picked apart by netizens, and it seems as if the mother is potentially alluding to another famous New Mexico case. About exactly a year ago, January of 2022, there was a young woman named Alexis Avila who was found guilty for throwing her baby into a dumpster. The baby survived.
And what happened to her?
Jail.
Okay.
To which Alexi responds, "It wasn't crying." So Rosa turns around, running her fingers through her hair, moving to the corner of the room, sobbing, and Nurse HT leaves the room for now. So now it's just mom and daughter and the police officer. Throughout the entire body cam footage, although blurry, Alexi is not wiping her eyes, she's not visibly tearing up, she's just relatively unmoving. She stays in the bed and she looks scared, but she doesn't seem to be crying or emotional. Her mom asks her, "Where did you put the baby at? Tell me the truth." Her mom asks her again, "Where?" And then the audio cuts out. So you can see the both of them say something, but nothing is heard. Rosa clarifies, "It came out in the toilet?" Alexi says, "Yes, he wasn't crying." "And you put it in the bag?" "Yes." "What bag?" "In the trash bag." There's a point in the conversation where Redditors have a lot of problems with how the mother speaks to the daughter. So Alexi is telling her mom all of this, where she put the baby. And she's also saying, like, I'm scared, right? And the mom says, "Why didn't you tell us?" And then immediately she kind of flips on her daughter and says, "Do you want to get in trouble?" Which is strange because you're already in a world of trouble. She says,
that is so odd.
Yeah, she continues, "Do you want to get in trouble for this? Because you can get in trouble for this now." One netizen pointed out, as soon as the mother said, "Do you want to get in trouble for this?" I immediately knew who the real problem was in this family unit. The girl is already in trouble. That statement makes little to no sense unless the mother is still desperately trying to take control and trying to threaten her child. I will say the family dynamic is interesting, and surely it plays a big part in today's case, but we're going to dive into it later. Eventually, Rosa gets pulled out of the treatment room and is told to stay in the waiting room till the detectives arrive. So as of right now, it's just been cops, not part of the investigation division. And because Alexi is legally an adult, they want to keep her isolated from any witnesses or potential co-conspirators, which is a theory that's going to come up later. So the cops tell Alexi that she's currently being detained in police custody and that a cop is going to be with her at all times at the hospital. When Alexi is alone with the nurse, she is asked by the nurse, "Right now it is very, very important that you are very honest and very truthful with us. Did your baby take at least one breath when it first happened, or was your baby not breathing?" Alexi said, "I've been having this bad abdominal pain, and so we came to the ER. When they brought me back in here to this room, I felt like I needed to poop, and I asked if I could go to the bathroom. So when they said yeah, that I could go to the bathroom, I sat on the toilet, and it all just fell out. But when I had it in my arms, it wasn't breathing. He wasn't moving. It wasn't breathing. So I just placed it in there." Okay, and was it a steady boyfriend, the father? "Yes." "Do you want me to include him as the father?" "For what? The birth and the death certificate?" "Oh, no, I don't want to put him down." So while Alexi is in the treatment room receiving postpartum care, her mom Rosa calls her husband and Alexi's boyfriend's family and breaks the news. They're all going to join Rosa in the waiting room. So to give a clear picture, Rosa calls her husband, aka Alexi's stepdad, so not her biological father.
Are these recorded?
Yeah, on body cam. And then Alexi's boyfriend and his mom will be in the waiting room as well. Meanwhile, Alexi is still waiting to be transferred. And side note, this is when we meet the ultrasound tech Lorraine, and Alexi's questions and behaviors with Lorraine become a bit suspicious. Now, ultrasound tech Lorraine and CNA Lori are two different people. Lorraine, the ultrasound tech, was on call for ultrasounds, and she arrived at the emergency room in the midst of this chaos. She wasn't there at the hospital. So she runs in and she's had like 20 years of ultrasound tech practice underneath her belt, and she just noticed a lot of police presence the minute she got there. But
so she's here to help Alexi.
Yeah, see what's going on, you know, is the placenta still in there?
Got it.
So before entering Alexi's room for the ultrasound, she was filled in briefly on what's going on. And Lorraine said that the whole procedure was incredibly uncomfortable. There was an officer already in Alexi's room, and Lorraine asked him to step out, which he did. Lorraine kept her head down as she prepped Alexi, and she had no intention of conversing with Alexi, and she hoped that maybe she would get the message. But she starts talking. Alexi told Lorraine, I don't know what's going on. I didn't know I was pregnant. I'm a cheerleader. I started gaining weight. My clothes were tight. I was taking birth control pills, and none of this makes sense. Lorraine stayed quiet, and could only gently respond, "I don't know what to tell you." Lorraine finished up the ultrasound and noted that there was a significant amount of bleeding and tissue, but that was pretty normal for regular typical deliveries, and Lorraine updated Dr. Vasquez after leaving the patient's room. She would also go to the cops and note that Alexi's tone was very panicked, but to her it didn't seem like a person that truly had no idea what was going on. Lorraine said that she had been in the field for 20 years and she had seen some weird people. She had talked to some off people, but she testified that Alexi's case did not seem like that. You know, it almost sounded like the way she's saying it was she's trying to get someone to believe her. She's trying to get someone on her side.
She was obviously in labor, and I think she knew that. And so my assumption was, she panics because when she was talking to me, she was talking pretty rapid, and she was like, "I don't understand." So, was it all mental, psychological, who knows, but she definitely knew what she was doing, and what was doing was wrong because of the way she was talking to me, just stating, I didn't realize I was pregnant, and, but I'm taking birth control, so, I mean, she was panicked, but, I didn't see her being in a state of mind where she did not know what she was doing.
Now, remember Nurse Elizabeth? She's still taking care of Alexi. She's providing postpartum care after all of this. And she is one of the staff that's having direct contact with Alexi after the police get involved. She said that Alexi kept talking to her as well. And Elizabeth reported that Alexi did not say anything about what happened in the bathroom, but she was just worried that she was going to get in trouble. And she even asked, "What's going to happen?" "I don't know, Alexi. Would there be any bad outcomes if I had stopped taking one medication and started another?" "It depends on the medications." "What would happen if I stopped taking birth control and started taking weight loss pills?" Chills ran up Elizabeth's back.
What does that mean?
Okay, so people interpret it two different ways, right? Oh, well, first of all, Elizabeth just said, "I'm not a pharmaceutical major, so I don't know what to tell you." And she left the room. A lot of netizens speculate that 19-year-old Alexi was probably not asking this question out of genuine curiosity or concern. It's not like "Oh my God, I'm so dumb and young and I made a grave error in judgment." It kind of feels like, again, the same thing with Lorraine. She's trying to trap someone into believing her as if she truly is this confused girl that made an honest mistake. Now, the second speculation is that many people pointed out Alexi asking if it's weird for her to take weight loss pills or if something happened, maybe it's more of like a, "Hey, I started taking weight loss pills because I was pregnant and I didn't want anyone to know." Like, it's such a random thing to bring up. Some people speculate that maybe she saw online or something that maybe weight loss pills could result in a non-viable pregnancy or like an at-home termination. So it just seems, again, I think the whole purpose of her saying this to a nurse is not really for help or for answers, but to get someone to kind of believe her, to be on her side. Now, at this point, even with all of this going on, Alexi has still not been arrested. An autopsy would be performed in order for that arrest warrant to be served. The consequences of disposing of a body after stillbirth are drastically different from a newborn being alive and healthy, and then due to a sequence of someone's actions, that baby ended up dead. So while Alexi is waiting to be transferred, baby Doe is sent for autopsy. Alexi's mom, Rosa, is in the waiting room with her husband, Alexi's stepdad, Alexi's boyfriend, and Alexi's boyfriend's mom. All of this is in the body cam footage. So when the officer arrives, Rosa stands up while the other three people remain in their seats. She immediately asks about Alexi and where she's going, and the officer informs her for the next steps and tells Rosa that the baby will be going into autopsy. Rosa just completely disregards the baby. Rosa's like, "Whatever, I don't care," and immediately asks about Alexi. Is she gonna get released? When? How? Are y'all gonna take her into custody or anything like that? Note that even though the cop, he had stated, the baby boy is going to be sent. He's going to be sent to be autopsied. He mentioned the baby's pronouns, the gender, and Rosa doesn't care. Rosa's only thinking about Alexi, not her grandchild. She didn't even register once that this was a baby boy that she just had.
The baby's gonna go up north for autopsy. More likely it will be done within the next day?
Is she gonna get detained after, like, she's released? How?
Get what?
Like, are y'all gonna take her into custody or anything like that? Like,
That depends on what the DA finds. We have to wait for the autopsy to come back to see what happened. Because right now with how everything happened.
As the footage continues, Alexi's stepdad, the husband to Rosa, is the only one that seems to be very upset with the situation. He's crying, he remains seated and in distress. He's asking questions about the baby. Now, across from the stepdad are Alexi's boyfriend and his mom, who remain seated, and they really only talk when they're spoken to by the cop. So before we get into the footage, let's go over quickly the relationship between Alexi and the guy sitting in the waiting room with his mom. This is the boyfriend. This is the supposed father of baby Doe. His name is Devin Fierro. Alexi and Devin had been dating for close to 2 years at this point. Devin was born to his mother, Melanie, who is also in the waiting room with him. And there's not too much information about the Fierro family, as Alexi is the accused. There's just not too much about him. Netizens remain divided on whether or not they believe he knew about the pregnancy or not. We don't officially know. Devin himself has not made a public statement, and I'm sure we are not going to hear anything official or any valid reports until the trial in this fall. He also attended the same high school as Alexi. They were both seniors ready to graduate, and Devin was a bit younger, so he's 18 and Alexi is 19 years old. Now, because of the viral nature of this case, netizens have tried digging for some gold. Most of the speculations flying around are completely unverifiable, but all we have right now is that he kept a low profile. They seem to be really in love, like a high school love. There have been falsified Instagram accounts that have been popping up pretending to be him, but so far there's not much. Now, back to the investigation. Some netizens applaud the cops' carefully chosen words following all of this. The officer says to Rosa, "So you would be the grandmother." Rosa corrects him, shaking her head, and says, "No, I'm mom. I'm her mom." The officer tells her, "So you would be the dead son's grandmother." Rosa responds, "Yes," and then immediately her hand shoots up and she's pointing a finger at the boyfriend's mom and goes, "So is she. That's her boyfriend."
Even though she's of age, if she's not available to be contacted, can we put you down as next of kin for all mine? Okay. And you'd be grandmother?
I'm mom.
So you'd be
I'm
the
her mom.
you'd be the descendant's grandmother.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
So that's her boyfriend.
The clip is super eerie. The way that Rosa immediately and literally and figuratively and physically points her finger at the boyfriend's mom to be like, "Oh, you're accusing me of being a grandma? Well, wait a minute, she is too." The cop gets the boyfriend's info and inquires about Alexi's pain when it all started. Rosa goes on to say that Alexi's father had beaten her when she was pregnant, which resulted in Alexi having back and hip issues, and she regularly saw a chiropractor and she's almost kind of using this as a way to explain the back pain and how it all had a history. Some conversation passes and the cop asks the boyfriend, "I'm not trying to be rude, but you would be the baby's father, correct?" He nods, and this is where something so strange happens. So up until this point, we just thought that Rosa is this mom who is such a tiger mom. She's so strict. She doesn't want her kids having sex, right? This guy just admitted that he had sex with Alexi in front of her. So I would imagine, of course, I mean, it already clicked in her head. She already knows logically. But I would imagine emotionally, it's more she's upset. She maybe has a grimace on her face. She's looking away. She's pissed. You would imagine that. Mm-hmm. But instead, Rosa and the boyfriend's mother look at each other, crack a smile, and kind of laugh.
What?
And they say, "We get it. Like, we get it. Like, get a room. We get it."
Not trying to be rude, but you are more than likely would be the father? Okay. Yes.
No, we get it. We get
Sometimes
it.
It happens.
The cop is at a loss for words. Once the mothers go back to being serious, he proceeds to explain why it's important that he asks questions like that. So throughout the body cam footage, Alexi's stepdad is the only one that asks about the baby. Rosa only ever asks about Alexi, and the boyfriend and his mom remain silent with just short 2-word answers. Not once did they ask about the baby, their grandchild. Not once did the father ask if he had a son or a daughter. Not once did the boyfriend's mother, the grandmother to this baby, ask about her grandchild. I mean, Everyone in this room who was biologically related to Baby Doe did not even acknowledge him. Alexi's stepdad, the only person in that room whose genetics were not a part of Baby Doe, was the only one showing emotion and asked a question about the boy. And of course, genetics do not decide family. Of course not. But it's ironic how everyone else whose literal DNA made up this dead baby boy did not ask a single question. This is backed up by charge nurse HT's police interview as well. He says, "Not one person asked me about the baby. If it was alive, if it was dead, a boy or a girl. Not one. I've delivered multiple babies and seen multiple miscarriages, and I've never seen anything like that. There was no emotion except for herself. She wasn't crying tears." He continues, "I'm just going to tell you this. I have never seen a reaction like that girl. There was zero emotion. I have seen women who are only pregnant for 6 weeks and they are a mess. To do what she did with no emotion, I've never seen anything like it. The only thing that upsets me the most is she gave me no chance to save that baby. And that's not what I do. Wow. My job is to save lives, and I had no chance. We were at a facility where you can drop off the baby and there are no questions asked." HT finishes and gets visibly emotional as his voice shakes and gets caught in his throat. More emotion than Alexi showed over all of the body camera footage that has been released. Postpartum care nurse Elizabeth also testified to the fact that Alexi was only asking questions about herself and not once did she ask about her son. Alexi is airlifted from this hospital to Lovelace, and the autopsy results would take longer than expected for Baby Doe. But the medical examiner determined that the baby boy had air in his lungs when he died. The ME ruled Baby Doe's death a homicide and stated that he had passed from asphyxiation, and the cause of death was, quote, entrapment. The report confirms that he died after birth. According to the official affidavit, entrapment is defined as when an individual is in an airtight or relatively airtight container, or in this case, a tied plastic trash bag, and consumes all of the available oxygen until there is no longer enough oxygen to sustain life. To further explain this, the autopsy and the postmortem showed the infant male had no anatomic abnormalities and or no physical injuries. His lungs were aerated and he had air in his stomach. She had delivered allegedly a healthy baby boy. The baby was 38 weeks old, which is 9.5 months. This is very important. The age of viability in which a preemie can live outside the womb and successfully develop is between 22 to 26 weeks with medical care, meaning Baby Doe would have survived even if he was born 4 months earlier. He was fully developed, yet he ended up in the bottom of a trash can and was suffocated to death within minutes of his first breaths. The air in his lungs and stomach were significant findings as they proved that Baby Doe was capable of life outside the uterus and had taken his first breaths after birth, his last breath shortly after. So this was still not enough to arrest Alexi. It would take months before she's arrested. Now, side note, she was physically fine, or at least fine enough to be discharged from the hospital. And what's interesting is that she went immediately right back to school. She continued to date her boyfriend, Devin Fierro, and the couple actually attended their senior prom together April of 2023.
No.
Like nothing happened. This is a picture of them at prom. And I want to say that netizens have been speculating the necklace that she's wearing. A lot of people who have grieved the loss of loved ones say that that necklace reminds them very much of a necklace where you store ashes or pieces of ashes from a loved one. People think it could potentially contain the ashes of Baby Doe. Now, this obviously isn't and cannot be confirmed, but keep this in mind because something more wild comes up later. So anyway, Alexi is allowed back into the school while the investigation continues, and the police do some things that have been debated by netizens. A police officer tries to approach Alexi while she's walking out of her high school alone, which I think the initial thing was people were upset. You know, it sounds scummy. It sounds like a police is trying to entrap her, right? But it's perfectly legal. She's 19 years old, she's an adult, and she has been an adult for over a year. Detectives do not need a guardian present to question her. They most likely approached her while she was coming out of high school to try and talk to her without her mother present, which again is absolutely legal because she's an adult. There are speculations that if Rosa hadn't been in that treatment room, maybe Alexi would have told medical staff what was going on. But Alexei does not want to talk to the investigators. Thankfully, they wouldn't need her testimony to arrest her. After 4 long months of investigation, May 10th of 2023, Alexei Trevizo was arrested. Now, the body cam footage was released, and that is when it went viral. After the arrest. The arrest itself was relatively unremarkable, like nothing too crazy or unexpected happens. But once again, Alexei's mom, Rosa, is incredibly protective in the least, combative at best to the arresting officers. Her reaction does remain interesting. Rosa, the mom, tells the police, "I'll bring her out. Just tell me what's going on." As if this is like coming out of nowhere. You know, a detective explains the warrant, and Alexei's mother asks, "For what?" Which is a very interesting question, okay? And a back and forth ensues before the officers disclose the reason. Again, I cannot stress enough, and apparently the cops cannot stress enough either, but Alexei is over 18, meaning Rosa has no legal right to know what the arrest warrant states. That's like if a random adult were to get arrested and I'm like, "Hey, officer, you should tell me what the arrest is for." It's like, I don't have to tell you. Now, the cops remind Rosa of this, but she still demands to know what the warrant is for. She does have a bit of an argument stating that she deserves to know what the warrant is for because this is her home. The police inform her that they have an arrest warrant for Alexei and not a warrant to search for her house, like through her house. I don't doubt that this is an incredibly terrifying situation, and maybe Rosa as a mother wants to protect her child regardless of age, but many take this as Rosa having a hard time accepting she is not the one in control. Alexei is an adult. She's a full legal person. And so there's this whole back and forth, Rosa standing and blocking the doorway with her body, and a probably fed up deputy states, "Homicide, an open count of homicide and tampering with evidence, that's what she's getting arrested for." And Alexei's mom says in disbelief, "Tampering with evidence at the hospital?" Again, I don't really know what the shock or attitude is about because
she always give the most bizarre reaction to things.
Bizarre, yeah. It's really, yeah. I mean, it's off-putting for sure. Even when you watch it, it's just kind of like, that makes me feel weird. I mean, I don't want to make speculations because I think that we all deal with shocking news differently, but it's not normal, I would say. It's interesting. Now, regardless, Rosa is on the phone with someone and demands to see the warrant physically. Now, again, they're like, "Okay, well, we can arrest Alexei and get her permission to visibly show you the warrant, so we gotta go get her." Finally, Rosa lets them in and Alexei is arrested. She does not cry. She does appear nervous, of course, but she's still kind of relatively emotionless for just the sheer gravity of her crimes, or what she's accused of. Now, something does catch the eye of netizens and internet sleuths. In the end of the video, the officer with the body camera is kind of escorting Alexei out of the house to make sure that she's not grabbing any weapons and just grabbing sanitary products. So he's in the house. Netizens go frame by frame in the short portion of the video that shows inside of their family home, and boom, there it is. People are like, "There is no way. Is that really? No freaking way. No, absolutely not. There's no way she would do that in a million years." You can see in the living room, there's a frame in the background of the body cam footage. And if you're listening to the audio version, I'm going to describe it. There is a thick black frame sitting on top of the living room main shelf of the entertainment console. And it kind of looks like a scrapbook page with a glass layer on top. It's vertical. From top to bottom is the name ALEX. Alex in big white letters. Next to the name are a small pair of angel wings and what looks to be a blanket. Tacked onto the blanket is a small photograph that looks like it'd be the size of like a sonogram. However, only the edges are black and the inside and the majority of the photograph is tan. Why is that important? Guess what else was tan? The hospital trash can was tan. Body cameras are notoriously blurry and pixelated, so the image is like a smudge. However, some netizens believe that it is a photo of baby Doe in the trash can, and it is now allegedly being used as some sort of familial memorial picture.
What?
Other netizens argue that this picture is actually a post-autopsy picture or a post-afterlife picture. I don't think we'll know for sure. I don't think this will ever be covered during the trial, probably not. But evidently, this photo has been leaked, but it has been wiped from the internet. But if this is what netizens believe it to be, this frame photo memory box. I mean, that's terrifying. Not only is she creating practically a false memory box with what appears to be a fake baby blanket that she literally never had use for. She never used one, and she put angel wings. So she is arrested, and after about a week, she is released on bail. March 16th, 2023, Alexi is released, and the Judge Finger, ruled that she would be able to finish school without being on house arrest. She's given a curfew, though, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. She's also required to attend counseling and is permitted to travel to the state of Texas to see family. But something to remember, in New Mexico, a first-degree murder charge could result in a life sentence. Child abuse could result up to 18 years. So as of now, her pretrial hearing is September 11th, 2023, and the current court date is scheduled for October 2nd, 2023. And the outrage to her bond has been swift. I mean, before we dive into what I'm about to talk about, I think I've made it relatively clear where I stand in terms of women having autonomy over their own bodies. But the following discourse is even more specific, even more particular, even more sensitive. So that being said, again, these are not personal opinions or part of a political agenda. These are just the facts of the case. So regardless of how you feel on the topic or where you fall on the spectrum, it is a fact that the United States Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a landmark case regarding abortion. That's not what we're talking about, okay? This overturning led to other states determining their own specifications regarding abortion. We spend half of our time in Georgia as of right now, which is where all my family is, and Georgia actually has one of the most restrictive laws in the nation regarding abortion. Now, how is that connected to today's case? Because in New Mexico, abortion has remained legal in the state, and it remains legal up until the moment before birth. Yeah, till the moment before birth. Currently, there are no laws limiting the availability of abortion services regardless of the gestation or how far along the mom is. Moreover, New Mexico does not require parental consent or notification for minors seeking abortion services. If there's any state to be in a position like Alexi, because she's not even a minor, right? It would have been New Mexico. So let me explain. Some netizens remain baffled as to why Alexi did not get an abortion, considering New Mexico's abortion laws are some of the least restrictive, and they make it far more accessible than the majority of the United States states. Not only was she an adult, she would not have to tell her mother, but even if she were a minor, she would still not have to get her mom involved because she lives in New Mexico. And you don't have to agree or support late-term abortion to understand this argument. You could think, well, I'll never get one and XYZ, but we're talking about the decisions that Alexi made. Clearly, Alexi does not care about infant life. I don't think she cares about a fetus life, right? I mean, she threw her baby in the trash can. So some people argued maybe she's against abortion, but I just think that's goofy. That is literally goofy. Like, you're, what? Okay, but let's, I guess, entertain this beyond goofy idea. Let's say she doesn't believe in termination of a pregnancy, so carrying to term was the only option. Did she have to put him in the trash can where he would suffocate and die, allegedly? Many netizens believe that she had other opportunities. Why? Because New Mexico offers the Safe Haven for Infants Act, which means individuals can bring their baby up to 90 days old to be dropped off at any safe haven location in the state. No questions asked, no criminal investigation. It is not child neglect. It is not child abandonment. In New Mexico, you may go to a hospital, law enforcement agency, or fire station, and you will not be chased down. You will not be asked, is this your baby? You will not be saying, oh, are you forgetting your baby? Let me repeat the first one for you really quick. A hospital. Alexi gave birth to her baby boy in a hospital, yet she still chose to throw him in the trash. Alexi gave birth to her baby boy in a hospital as a legal adult, yet she still chose to throw him in the trash. Alexi gave birth to a baby boy in a hospital as a legal adult with numerous chances to speak up and request that her mother, if Rosa was the reason that she was too scared to tell anyone she was pregnant, she could have requested her mom leave her treatment room because she was 19. But let's argue that her mom is so controlling and so terrifying that she couldn't ask for her mom to be removed from the treatment room. She could have easily, on her way to the bathroom, alerted a nurse and ran into a separate treatment room instead, closed the door, demanded that they honor HIPAA and not tell her mom what was happening. even if Alexi was under Rosa's healthcare insurance, which I don't know, thinking about health insurance coverage in this type of situation would be kind of insane. But even if that was her concern, just speculating here, if that was her concern, because Alexi is a legal adult, she has her own rights to medical privacy that would be upheld. So even though she's under her mom's health insurance, her mom wouldn't need to know. Now, some netizens say, let's only blame Alexi to a degree because it seems like her mom Rosa was the one at fault. She was the one that played a huge part in why Alexi probably continued to lie. She's most likely controlling, aggressive, not giving Alexi the chance to tell the truth. Now, I think we'll never fully know what was going on in Rosa's head and how much she knew and how much she didn't know about her daughter, but we can make an educated guess. And for legal, a guess is not a fact. Maybe because Alexi was not physically appearing pregnant and ready to pop. A testimony from hospital staff as well. She did not look full term. Maybe Rosa did not know that her daughter was full term, and she may have been suspicious of a pregnancy, but her later actions, at least to me, indicate that Rosa probably thought the pregnancy was either super early on or non-viable, like an ectopic pregnancy. I don't think that she knew the extent or seriousness of the pregnancy, though. I think the only one who truly knew the extent was probably Alexi. Maybe her boyfriend. I mean, again, like I said, it's clear that parenting is a huge factor in this case for both Alexi and Rosa, it seems. But since Alexi may have not had the best relationship with her mom, she might have felt like she couldn't trust her. Some people say that Alexi seems very sheltered just by looking at the body cam footage. It seems like she doesn't understand that she could go to jail for that. However, Alexi is again 19. Chris, Lori, Dr. Vasquez, all people that were capable of saving a baby's life, they all knocked on the door, and Alexi could have said, I'm 19, don't tell my mom, this is confidential, please can one of you come in? Now, there are people who are calling Alexi the embodiment of the devil, the most evil mother to exist. And I don't know if I can have a strong personal opinion on Alexi. I do think that we all have the ability to think critically. Like, look, most of us have been 19 and maybe some of us had pregnancy scares at that age. And I will say, everyone is freaking terrified of their parents' reaction. You're scared of what the future is going to be, what's going to happen, especially more so when you're a teenager. But I don't think that this is something that would have ever crossed my or any of you guys' minds when you're 19. Now, I will say there is a big piece of the puzzle that I am missing, which is I've never been a mother, I've never given birth. I am unfamiliar with the emotions that can be brought up in these situations and what kind of chemical imbalances I would have. So I'm going to share with you what I've seen some moms say on the internet about this. One mom netizen commented, I was 19 when I found out I was pregnant. I didn't find out until I was already 6 months pregnant. I was on birth control. I showed no signs of pregnancy, and I was actually losing weight during the time. Needless to say, it was not planned. I was nervous to tell my mom, but I did. And I had two choices. I keep my baby or I give it up for adoption. I made the choice to keep my baby. She will be 16 this year. She's a straight A student, and she is the best daughter I could ask for. There are no excuses for what this girl did. None. She had options. But another mom and some other netizens feel differently. They state that postpartum could have been a huge factor in this case. One commenter states, I feel so bad for this girl. So much happens to your body when you're pregnant. I mean, this kind of visceral reaction is not abnormal postpartum. The huge influx of hormones affected every woman differently, and she was clearly in a state of panic, likely induced by the physical trauma that she just went through. The people gutting her as a murderer are so eager to pick up a pitchfork and burn women alive without understanding a goddamn thing about actually being a woman. I would like to know your thoughts if you guys have given birth. While I do think that postpartum is incredibly serious and it's not talked about enough, I don't know. Maybe I'm not in the place to say because I've never had postpartum myself, but I've seen the people closest to me go through postpartum, and maybe we were all just lucky and it wasn't that bad. But another mom commented, postpartum depression, anxiety, and even psychosis are actually quite common side effects of pregnancy and labor. Yet society always views women with problems as monsters. I can't even imagine the terror this girl must have felt. Now, just a couple of final loose strings before we wait for further updates. This case is blown up and it's reached pretty much like all the corners of the internet, and there have been some viral pictures associated with this case that have been released by unverified accounts. And this is not the first time that we've seen this in true crime cases. It happens a lot. I don't know if these are real or if these have been edited, but pictures have been going around that show Alexi in her cheer team costume, and she looks visibly very pregnant. So people are using this as like, oh, everyone knew she was pregnant. Come on now. We just don't know if these were Photoshopped or not. Alexi has been released. She has lawyered up, and her defense attorney, Gary Mitchell, states that there's a lot more to the case than we all think. He states that this is more than a regular, quote, abandon a newborn in child abuse case. Defense attorney Gary Mitchell alludes that the hospital actually committed malpractice. He states that not a single one of them told her that she was pregnant, basically saying she had no idea she was pregnant. They also did not tell her that they needed to examine her. The attorney confirms that Alexi went to the hospital with back pain, and he states that she had severe abdominal pain and indicated that she was on a scale of 1 through 10, a 10. Another part of his defense focuses on the medication given to Alexi. According to the attorney, Alexi was on a ton of medication, Zofran, sodium chloride. Those are the ones that are not that serious, but she was on morphine. The attorney alleged that these are some pretty heavy medications to put on a pregnant person. He claims that the hospital staff knew that she was pregnant but didn't want to say anything until she went into the bathroom. He claims that they should have monitored her the entire time. He even states to the press, if a pregnant woman needs to go to the restroom, they should have thought that she might be going into labor. He also indicates that he does not believe the autopsy results are true, and he wants to have another expert take a look at it. He also alleges that the hospital illegally released some of Alexi's medical history. Yeah. So, Gary is convinced that Alexi is totally innocent, but he says that whatever the staff did is malpractice. He states, I will not hold back when it comes to representing this young girl. She's a good person, someone you can be proud of, and because of our attitude about women's reproductive care and the way we treat women in this country, is now being exposed to a first-degree murder charge. He went on to explain that Alexi has a 3.8 GPA and already committed to the New Mexico State University. He states that Alexi is an honor student that's on the choir team as well as the cheer team and has never had a single infraction in school, nor has she had any traffic violations. And another little loose string before we wrap this up regarding Rosa. Take this with a pinch of salt because, but allegedly Rosa, the mom, was arrested in 2004 for a DWI in Texas, allegedly. She is also a registered felon for a faulty check and misdemeanor in Gaines, Texas from July 2004. She has a state felony because there were minors in the vehicle during her DWI.
What's DWI?
Driving with influence, I believe.
Oh, so DUI.
Yeah. She has pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 years probation. And according to internet sleuths, again, I don't know how true this information is, but Alexi's biological father has a custody agreement, lives in Texas, and he owed or owes over $10,000 in child support. So I believe this is the latest update in the case as of now. Judge Finger released Alexi on bail, and there is an interesting condition in her bond. She is to not get pregnant again. So, as for the impact of this case, I think we're just going to have to wait and see what's going to happen here. I think that this case is going to get politicized. I think it might be one of those cases where all the different parties use it as a way to further their political agenda. But I think just looking at the crime itself or the loss of life itself, I think we should focus on the ripple effect that it had on everyone, especially in the community of New Mexico. Many crime scene investigators, along with hospital staff, many of them had mental breakdowns. They're requiring counseling. They're coping with this traumatic event. Not only did a baby boy lose his life, a father lost his son, grandmothers lost their grandbaby, regardless of if they care or not. A mother lost her child. But there were a lot of people, medical staff, first responders who had to witness these losses in the most traumatic way. Thank you to medical staff and first responders who are listening right now. You guys are superheroes. And I think that we like to think of them as just so strong and they just do their job so well, right? And they put in so much effort to making it look like they have no emotions, but they're just suppressing it for the sake of their patients. Leela, the housekeeper, was the one that found the baby. And her police interview is so heartbreaking. Towards the end, the detectives ask her if she's doing anything to help with her emotions. And she said no. And she shared her previous struggles with the detectives. In 2018, Leela's boyfriend died at his own hands. He shot himself in front of her.
Oh my.
And so you can imagine the blood at the crime scene, she did see a psychiatrist afterwards, and the psychiatrist told her, don't take this cleaning job at the hospital. If you see blood, it might give you PTSD. But Leila thought, well, I do need to go to work. I need to make a living. I need a routine. So she accepted the job. And just a few years later, she would have to witness yet another bloody crime scene. And in the CCTV footage, it looks like Leila has the body language of someone that's dealing with a lot of shock and potentially guilt. I think a lot of these nurses, a lot of these staff, they have the questions of, what if I checked the bathroom better? What if I had checked the trash bin first? Maybe if I had opened the trash bin earlier. Maybe if I had just known. Maybe if I moved faster. Maybe we tried to get into the bathroom a bit quicker. Many of the medical staff were very distraught because they never had the chance to save this little baby. And that's what they're trained for. That's what they spent all this time, energy, and money going to school to save people. And I think it's worse because it literally happened in the bathroom. It was not a crazy medical emergency that they just didn't understand, that no one could help. Now, as of right now, Alexei has pled not guilty. There's a big chance it'll end up with a grand jury trial, and that will be in October. There are similar cases we've talked about where like 18, 19-year-olds will give birth and dispose of their babies in pretty horrific ways. Do you think it's going to have similar results, similar rulings? But let me know, and we will do our best to keep you guys updated, and we will see you in the next episode.